What's up everybody, Commander Sanctum here, and today we have a brand new deck tech using Aloy, Savior of Meridian. Aloy is a 3/5 human warrior for 3 green-blue that has Vigilance, Reach, and, whenever one or more artifact creatures you control attack, discover X, where X is the greatest power among them. Much like the Horizon video games, Aloy is all about mechanical creatures, getting a bonus for controlling, or overriding, them. Being able to cast things for free is an absolutely phenomenal ability, so we'll be leaning heavily into making sure we can discover as much and as large as possible. To achieve this, we'll be focusing more so on a specific type of artifact: vehicles. Vehicles have the benefit of being an artifact creature when crewed, and thus counting towards Aloy's Discover trigger, while also being much more resilient to creature-based removal, since they're only creatures on turns that you want them to be. I also want to give a shout out to Mac, a good friend of mine who actually brewed this deck and let me use it for this deck tech. I'll link his architect at the top of the description so you can check out some other cool builds he's made. With that, let's get into the card highlights. To start out with our vehicle selection, let's look at ones that have both a high power and great ability. For this, we have 2 from the Warhammer 40k set in Knight Paladin and Reaver Titan. Both of these are not only high in power, they also have great abilities, doing a ton of damage to your opponents when they enter or attack, respectively. While not a true vehicle in terms of actual keywords, spacecrafts are also effective ways to make large artifact creatures, and Extinguisher Battleship is a great example of such. Not only does it destroy a non-creature permanent when it enters, it also does 4 damage to each creature, potentially acting as a board wipe that doesn't also kill Aloy in the process. Not to mention, being a 10/10 Flampler after being fully stationed is nothing to scoff at. Brotherhood, Vertibird, and Dodgy Jalopy have variable power, with the former being based on the number of artifacts you control, and the latter being equal to the highest mana value of creatures you control. Needless to say, both of these vehicles have the potential to get very large very quickly, making them great options to get Aloy's Discover trigger as large as possible. Deluxe Dragster has a static power, but is a great way to get some extra, pretty much guaranteed damage to an opponent, while also letting you cast their best spell from their graveyard. For vehicles that give us an advantage, we have Hull Drifter, which nets us a nice 2 cards when it enters, and Cultivator's Caravan, which can act as a mana rock when not crewed, letting us pump out some more vehicles quicker than usual. The Indomitable also enables more card draw, acting as a reconnaissance mission type of effect, giving you a card whenever one of your creatures deals combat damage to a player. While a vehicle strategy tends to lend itself more to attacking with only 1 or 2 creatures, any additional card draw is a boon, making the Indomitable a great choice for multiple reasons. Speaking of attacking with more creatures, we also do actually have a number of vehicles that can generate token or token adjacent creatures for us. Cybership is a token adjacent card, giving us the top 2 cards of a player's library as 2/2 Cybermen whenever it deals combat damage. Thopter Fabricator only works if we're able to draw multiple cards a turn, but is still a great way to get some 1/1 flyers out, while Rolling Hamsphere is a much more consistent way of making 1/1s and dealing some nice damage to boot. The most important aspect of all these tokens, however, is that they can then be used to help crew your vehicles, letting you attack with significantly more vehicles on later turns. We also have vehicles that help buff other vehicles, or otherwise work with them in some way. Lifecraft Engine is a great way to give all your crewed vehicles an additional +1/+1, while Thunderous Velocipede makes vehicles enter with either 1 counter or a whopping 3 +1/+1 counters, depending on its mana value. This even works with normal creatures, like Aloy, making it a phenomenal way to get larger beings to actually crew the vehicles. Surge Hacker Mech, on the other hand, is a great way to snipe off one of your opponent's pesky creatures, or even a planeswalker, when it enters. For some ramp options in the form of vehicles, we have the Regalia and Lumbering World Wagon, which will net you a land from your library when it attacks or enters respectively. The World Wagon even has the added benefit of having variable power equal to the number of lands you control, making it a great option to get the most out of Aloy's Discover trigger. Head Shredder is less consistent than the other 2, but can still be a great way to get multiple lands out onto the battlefield, if you get lucky enough with its mill attack trigger. Finally, we also have some vehicles that provide some added benefit when crewed. Mindlick Mech will become a pseudo-copy of the creature that crewed it, while Mobilizer Mech will auto-crew another vehicle when it's crewed. The Mobilizer Mech is especially great in this capacity, since getting another one of your vehicles effectively crewed for free is an amazing ability. Since the mech is a crew 3, this means that Aloy herself can crew it, letting you then also freely crew one of your bigger vehicles that may not have been crewable on that turn due to the lack of creature power on your battlefield. Seriously, this mech is going to do some serious work in this deck, so it shouldn't be discounted. Outside of vehicles, we can also use artifact creatures that will naturally have a large power to really get the most out of Aloy's Discover. The best part about using these kinds of creatures is that we can also use them to crew the vehicles if need be, depending on what will be better in each situation. To start out with, we have Traxos, Scourge of Krug, a creature that doesn't untap regularly, but should be pretty easy to untap in such an artifact-heavy deck. If we can cast 2 artifacts in a turn, we can even untap Traxos to use him to crew, then cast our second artifact in the second main phase to untap him again to use as a blocker on your opponent's turn. Master of Ethereum is another artifact that has power and toughness equal to the number of artifacts you control, while simultaneously providing an Anthem effect for all your artifact creatures, really making it a double whammy of heavy power increases to help with Aloy. Karn, Legacy Reforged, and Emissary Escort are more artifact creatures that have variable power, both being determined based on the highest mana value of artifacts you control. Karn even has a secondary ability that will be phenomenal in such an artifact-heavy deck, since he'll give you persistent colorless mana based on how many artifacts you control. This sort of temporary ramp is going to be so pivotal in games, since it'll let us cast more vehicles and creatures than normal, making Karn a phenomenal include for such a low cost of 5 mana. Speaking of casting more artifacts and vehicles, we can take advantage of some cards that either reduce the cost of said permanents or simply helps us cast them quicker. Ethereum Sculptor is one of the quintessential artifact reduction cards, reducing artifacts you cast by 1 mana, while also being an artifact itself. Renowned Weaponsmith is a great artifact-specific mana dork, letting you tap him for 2 colorless mana that can only be used on artifact spells or abilities. Since we're so focused on artifacts, the mana restriction from the Weaponsmith won't be too big of a deal for us, and since he's a creature, can even help with crewing our vehicles, making it an all-around great include. Since we'll need as many creatures as we can to help crew all of our vehicles, we'll want to use some cards that help us really maximize the ability to crew. For this, we have Nanoform Sentinel, which will untap another permanent when it itself becomes tapped. This can be great if we use the Sentinel to crew a vehicle after already crewing another one with a different creature. Thanks to its ability, the Sentinel would allow us to untap that first creature we crewed with, freeing it up to crew yet another vehicle. Mu Yanling Windrider will not only give us a more high-powered vehicle with a low crew cost when it enters, but also gives our vehicles flying and lets us draw some cards if we can connect with them. Katsumasa the Animator is probably the best card in this category, since it'll let us pay a low 3 mana to freely crew any of our vehicles, regardless of its crew cost. Honestly, later in the game, this can be a great mana sink to simply enable all of our vehicles to swing for lethal. Not only that, but it also makes our vehicles bigger each upkeep by giving 3 of them +1/+1 counters. Katsumasa is one of those all-around great cards in a deck like this that should not be overlooked. Since we're so focused on artifacts, we can take advantage of one of the newer keywords, historic. Artifacts are considered historic and as such, will trigger any historic-based effect when utilized. Crystal Skull Isu Spyglass is one such card, letting you cast historic spells, and thus artifacts, from the top of your library while also being a mana rock. Displace Dinosaurs turns any historic permanent that enters into a 7/7 dinosaur permanently. Needless to say, being able to immediately and permanently enable our vehicles, while also likely making them bigger, is an absolute game changer in a deck like this. Desynchronization is a historic-based evacuation type spell, returning all non-historic permanents to their owner's hand. While this won't deal with things like commanders or our opponent's artifacts, the fact that we're so heavily artifact-based means we'll likely be impacted the least by it, making it a great option. While card draw is important for any deck, I wanted to call out a few cards that synergize well with our overall themes. Traverse Eternity is another historic card that'll draw you cards equal to the highest mana value among historic permanents you control, while Return of the Wildspeaker can draw you cards equal to the highest power among non-human creatures you control. It also has a nice pseudo-overrun ability as well, making it a nice modular spell to net you some cards or help you end the game. Uthros Researchcraft will draw you a card whenever you cast an artifact, while also eventually becoming a large artifact creature in its own right. Finally, we have a number of utility cards that work well with the overall themes of the deck. Satannal Stalwart is a great way to get some use out of those uncrewed vehicles, letting you tap them to get some extra mana for the turn. Embry Lurker of the Loch is a great artifact recursion effect, letting you get back one or more of your destroyed vehicles from the graveyard. Leyline Immersion can help protect Aloy from targeted removal, giving her Ward 2, while also letting you use Aloy to generate some extra mana if need be. While tapping Aloy for mana means you can't use her to crew, there may be situations where the mana is worth more than the crew, making it a nice situational benefit if needed. To help crew our vehicles that have higher crew costs, we can use Adaptive Omni Tool and Tarion Soul Cleaver to boost the power of our creatures either permanently or temporarily. There's also Azuri's Predation, which, besides acting as a pseudo board wipe depending on your opponent's creatures, can also give us a plethora of creatures to use to crew the vehicles. Even if just a few of our 4/4 beasts survive, that's a great boon for us since it will go a long way to helping us crew our better vehicles. Here's an example deck list utilizing all the previously mentioned cards. Additional cards include more vehicles like Unlicensed Hearse and Smuggler's Copter, more artifact creatures in Thought Monitor and Solemn Simulacrum, and some nice vehicle-based utility lands in Mech Hangar and Balam Garden Seed Academy. Aloy from Horizon is such a great character that I absolutely love seeing brought into Magic. As far as her actual card goes, I think that Discover is a very powerful and underutilized mechanic, so seeing her able to really use it in an interesting way is cool to see. I mean, who doesn't love casting things for free? The vehicle route for this deck is also a cool and interesting way of building such a deck. Sure, this could have just all been generic powerful artifact creatures, but where's the fun in that? Vehicles bring another level of depth to this build that really makes the deck more unique and interesting. Is it the most powerful version that this deck could be? Probably not, but that's okay. Commander isn't always about being the most powerful or the strongest, it's about uniqueness and just having fun. In my opinion, Aloy, and a vehicle-heavy deck, checks both of those boxes. If you're someone who just loves Aloy and the Horizon game series, or just loves unique and fun decks, then this one should be right up your alley. I hope you enjoyed watching this deck tech on Aloy, Savior of Meridian. The full deck list outlined in this video can be found at the Archetype link at the top of the description. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to drop a like and comment, as well as subscribe to the channel for more Magic content. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.